He's got to follow his own path. No one can choose it for him.
I still do bad things, but are they actually bad? No, because nothing is ever anyone's fault. We're all just products of childhood trauma. Nothing is ever anyone's fault. Pain causes anger and fear causes drama.
Nothing is ever anyone's
Nothing is ever anyone's. My parents messed me up, 'cause their parents messed them up.
Energy in space was the ultimate fat father.
It's hard to paint people with evil or glory when you know that everyone's got a tragic backstory.
What does he need to be redeemed for?
The Resistance prepares. All across the galaxy, mechanical genius joins with the muscle of our people, working to win for the ways of freedom. Freedom to think, to speak, to rise, live and plan with one's fellow man. Heroes everyone, heroes by the billion. People who abandon home and vocations that they may be ready to defend the Republic from the First Order. General Organa's Resistance is our last line of defense against this menace. Many brave recruits have joined the cause. Taking example from the rebellion, any man, woman or child who chooses to take up arms against the real evil growing in the galaxy is welcomed to the side of right. It is the surest way to defeat the Final Order once and for all. Anyway, hello! On this channel we talk about ladies. Looks like we're mostly talking about male characters today, so I'd better redecorate. There, better? As always, I know how this fandom can be, and if you're one of those terribly boring people who think any of these characters should have gone to space court and been on trial for their crimes, this video is not for you. And on the other side, if you think redemption arcs are overdone, then first, list your top 20 redemption arcs in the next 5 minutes. Ready, go!
For dinner.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
But then yeah, this video isn't for you either. For the rest of you, we're going to talk about how redemption is used in Star Wars, the quintessential example of a redemption arc, and all the real-world implications of the trope. Let's get started. Alright, so a redemption arc is where a character starts out bad and then becomes good, usually with an act of atonement. People have a lot of feelings about redemption arcs. If I may paraphrase Lemony Snicket, redemption arcs are like meatballs because nobody can agree what they're made of, where they come from, or how often they should appear. So while I'm certainly going to be spending most of this video discussing how Star Wars in particular deals with the idea, I have been taking note of how it is done in other stories. And there are two things I want to get out of the way before we start. The first is that if you find redemption arcs tiresome, then, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, perhaps you should watch something made for adults.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
When I'm feeling more cynical, my favorite genre is film noir. And there's basically nary a redemption arc to be found. Most of the characters experience significant corruption arcs.
We're both rotten.
Only you're a little more rotten. You got me to take care of your husband for you.
And then my favorite trilogy is corruption arcs all around. Our heroes are definitely not learning to be upstanding members of society as the story progresses.
He's a pirate. King?
Genre also has a significant impact on the stakes for which a character needs redeeming. Like in the cozy, low-stakes story of Little Women, we are asked to forgive Amy for burning Joe's manuscript, but we would be quite shocked if it asked us to forgive her for killing a man. While if you're looking at an action-adventure story like Star Wars, where two of our original leads kill people within moments of us meeting them, you probably shouldn't expect a murder to be a bridge too far in the redemption arc category. Second, in addition to genre, the form of media also makes a significant difference in how redemption arcs play out.
Amy, you've got it.
I'm sure that, especially if you are around my age, that we all have the same go-to redemption arc from a prominent television show in our youth. The Green Ranger in Power Rangers, obviously.
Rangers, with our new friend comes new power. Use your flute, Tommy, and bring life to the Dragon's Ore.
Check it out! Man, it's more phenomenal!
How could Tommy do this to us?
Rita must have cast a spell over Tommy and is controlling his mind.
But sadly, that's not going to be really applicable to what we're talking about today. Frankly, a significant number of television shows have some kind of redemption arc in them. Kids' cartoons regularly have at least an episode or two where the heroes team up with the villain. Sometimes the change is permanent, sometimes they split up again at the end. And any long-running series will make fan favorites more sympathetic and bring them back to hang out with the heroes in some capacity.
Who the hell do you think recommended you? Thank you.
Essentially, my point is that a redemption arc in a movie or a short story looks pretty different and requires other analytical skills than understanding it in a show, especially a show for children. For example, Theoden has a redemption arc in Lord of the Rings, despite only appearing for less than 25 minutes. And how it works is to clearly set him up as a foil for Denethor, who does not have a redemption.
Why should I welcome you?
And with your right, you'd seek to supplant me.
Balin.
Both of them fell to the lies of the enemy and lost their sons as a result. Theoden breaks free, performs one last heroic charge, and ensures his people will be properly cared for by his niece and nephew. He passes on his legacy, personally to Éowyn, and
I go to my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall not now feel ashamed.
in contrast, Denethor tries to bring his son down with him and leaves him behind to ultimately lose the legacy. Yeah, Faramir is still steward, but the king has now returned, so it's not the same.
You will not take my son from me!
Anyway, as much as I love Lord of the Rings, I must say it does not do all that well with the idea of redemption, at least not across the board. I would say Éowyn and Theoden get redemption arcs, but the hobbits don't. So with Gollum, Gandalf makes this point.
It's a pity Bilbo didn't kill him when he had the chance.
Pity? It was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand. My heart tells me that Gollum has some part to play yet, for good or ill. The pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of men.
But given how things end up, it sort of seems like he had to be left alive so he could be sacrificed here instead of Frodo, which is certainly a take. And even though Frodo brings this up,
I want to help him, Sam. Why? Because I have to believe he can come back.
Frodo ultimately fails.
The ring is mine.
And ends up having to leave Middle-earth, not become a leader of the Shire like the rest of his fellows.
We set out to save the Shire, Sam, and it has been saved. But not for me.
Yes, I understand that this is how Tolkien was processing his grief and trauma, but this ending is bittersweet, not joyful. Compared to, for example, this. Unrestrained joy here. Sure, Luke was sad moments ago, but he has closure, and this is a perfect happy ending for the trilogy. But to illustrate the difference, let's back up and figure out how we got to this point, and more relevantly, who was redeemed in the process.
I've got to save you.
You already have.
And they all fit this quote of Leia's.
He's got to follow his own path. No one can choose it for him.
Leia is, of course, talking about Han Solo in A New Hope. Here he is a real scoundrel, just out for himself.
Your worshipfulness, let's get one thing straight. I take orders from just one person, me.
He is willing to help the cause only to get paid.
You needn't worry about your reward. If money is all that you love, then that's what you'll receive.
Leia puts him in his place, but that doesn't make him change his mind. But after he has seen the rebellion and had both Leia and Luke express disappointment in him,
You know what's about to happen, what they're up against? They could use a good pilot like you. You're turning your back on them.
he has a change of heart and comes back to save Luke at a crucial moment for him to use the Force and save the day.
What?
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.
I think it's a shame that this is so often seen as Luke's victory when this whole scene is showing us how important regular non-Force users are and how this one change of heart actually saves the galaxy. Put a pin in that idea.
The boy has no patience.
You will learn patience.
It's such a great moment for Han that actually he doesn't have much to do in the next two movies. As I talked about in this video, his function in the plot is really just as a love interest for Leia / MacGuffin for plot development.
Well, there's a price on my head. If I don't pay off Jabba the Hutt, I'm a dead man.
But his ending in Empire certainly questions the idea of a redemption arc. Why join the rebellion if it means he's hunted more than ever?
Well, the bounty hunter we ran into when Lord Mendel changed my mind.
And actually gets caught and torn away from the people he loves. That's why it's so important for him to come back in Return of the Jedi to actually finish his redemption arc.
It's all right. I can see a lot better.
A little higher! Just a little higher!
Because yeah, he came back to help the rebellion at an essential moment, and he saved the princess from capture while presumably doing other things for the rebellion on Hoth. But now we see the point of his change of heart. He can make a significant difference in this final battle.
General Solo, is your strike team assembled?
Fully making up for anything morally dubious he may have done before and showing that he is part of the rebellion once and for all. So awesome! What a great guy. Next, we have Lando Calrissian. While Han disappointed our heroes, Lando actually goes a step further than that and betrays them to the Empire.
I had no choice. They arrived right before you did.
And his dealings with the Empire give an interesting political statement. He may be trying to negotiate for the lesser of two evils, but ultimately he has to turn against the Empire entirely.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
That's what happens when you try to engage with something evil on your own terms.
Perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly?
The only solution is to betray the Empire and get his people out of there. And though he failed to rescue Han, he succeeds in rescuing the princess. Well, helping her rescue herself.
We understand, don't we, Chewie?
As well as Chewie, the droids, and Luke. That was his act of atonement. But that's not the end of his story. Then he goes to Tatooine to make up for his part in Han's capture. He ensures Han is freed from Jabba the Hutt and then is a general in the rebellion.
General Calrissian has volunteered to lead the fighter attack.
Good luck.
He leads the attack on the second Death Star and saves the galaxy. Again, his change of heart and strong moral stance leads to considerable change in the status quo of the galaxy far, far away. Next, of course, we have Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader. I've already talked a bit about this scene in this video, but I shall talk about it again. It's just so good.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
The main thing I want to point out is that the way this is framed, this is probably the most important thing happening in the galaxy. Sure, we check in with the rebellion while this whole plot is working out, but it's not the focus of this sequence. There isn't all that much tension. We know they will succeed. Mostly we're stressed because they might succeed before Luke does.
I'm sure Luke wasn't on that thing when it blew.
And that's noteworthy because that makes it unlike really any blockbuster I can think of. Lord of the Rings has this 3-person confrontation too, but it is explicitly the necessary thing that has to happen.
Those 10,000 orcs now stand between Frodo and Mount Doom.
While the rest of our heroes are just a distraction.
A diversion.
Han, Lando, and their respective teams are not a distraction. They're both doing what is absolutely necessary to save the galaxy.
The shield must be deactivated if any attack is to be attempted. Fly into the superstructure and attempt to knock out the main reactor.
While Luke is not. He isn't there to kill the Emperor, and as he says,
soon I'll be dead, and you with me.
Frankly, from a plot perspective, what he's doing here doesn't matter at all in the grand scheme of things. The Emperor would still die when the place exploded, you know? But how Luke is going to react to all of this is an essential part of the story. Both the temptation from the Emperor and his confrontation with his father.
I can't kill my own father.
Will he be right in his convictions? Will he turn to the dark side? And will his father betray him further? Or will he turn back to the light?
You can't do this. I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate.
This is what the whole story is about. What it's always been about. Han's change of heart changed the galaxy, so did Lando's, and now so will Darth Vader's. Except, importantly, Anakin saves his son, and himself in the process. That's the thesis. That's the goal. Anyone who turns to help the good guys is welcome.
Kind of what Star Wars is about is like normal people just like going, yo, actually, I can like help out here, so I'm going to.
And by deciding to turn, they tip that metaphysical balance of the Force to ensure the good guys will win. It's like in Lord of the Rings, where each small action for good has ripples. Lord of the Rings is specifically about fighting despair and choosing to act on the side of good, even if you have no way of knowing it will make any difference.
There's so many of them. We'll never get through unseen.
Come on. Let's just make it down the hill for starters.
And Star Wars has the same idea, just with happier results.
Hope is like the sun. If you only believe in it when you can see it.
You'll never make it through the night.
Next, the prequels don't have a specific redemption arc, other than having one as a franchise, but that's not something I'm going to get into here. They also provide a way to humanize both Anakin Skywalker and the Jedi mentors, explaining their intentions and what drove them to how they act in the Orig Tridge, so it fills out the existing redemption arcs.
There's good in him. I know.
That means the next person with a redemption arc we have is Finn in the sequel trilogy. He starts as a stormtrooper working for the First Order and makes a choice not to anymore.
On my first battle, I made a choice. I wasn't going to kill for them.
His act of atonement could be rescuing Poe, but since that doesn't exactly work, and then he doesn't do anything else helpful intentionally for a while, I would say it's not until later. It's here when he helps the Resistance on Starkiller Base.
Lower the shields.
You're making a big mistake.
Do it.
Yeah, he came here for more personal reasons.
I'm just here to get Rey.
People are counting on us.
The name's Finn, and I'm in charge. I'm in charge now, Phasma. I'm in charge.
And had no plan for actually doing what he was sent to do.
Then how do you know how to disable the shields?
I don't.
But it works out, and he is now a hero.
That was incredibly brave what you did. Renouncing the First Order, saving this man's life.
You're Finn. Finn.
Though then we get to explore what that actually means. Han was uncomfortable with being a hero of the rebellion right away and took until the third movie to really do it.
Then I'll see you in hell.
Finn is also distracted.
This fleet is doomed, and if my friend comes back to it, she's doomed too.
Instead of helping the cause.
Gotta get this beacon far away from here, then she'll find me and be safe.
You're a selfish traitor.
Until he learns from Rose what is really important.
Saving what we love.
She saves his life.
I saved you.
And we see the setup for his change of heart to change the galaxy.
You're a bug in the system.
Rebel scum.
Except, well, that doesn't really go anywhere, does it? Because this movie is just so bad, you guys. Bringing us to the next redemption arc, Jannah's. Check out my video about her for more detail, but she also starts as one of the First Order soldiers and turns to join the Resistance, which is great.
I never knew there were more.
Deserters. All of us here were stormtroopers.
The idea this trilogy sets up of how a stormtrooper can have a change of heart is huge. Definitely galaxy changing.
We wouldn't do it. We laid our weapons down.
All of you?
The whole company.
Too bad that doesn't go anywhere.
Are you ready back there?
Never been readier.
So there's no real act of atonement and no lasting effect on the galaxy, while Finn is given the title of General.
Thank you. I appreciate that. General?
It's unclear how influential he is in the Resistance and how important their mission here really is.
Once the tower's down, the fleet will be stuck in Atmo for just minutes.
Unlike Luke, Rey's mission against Palpatine settles everything, and her friends are just stalling for her. Unfortunately for them, nothing they do seems to actually matter, given how little we understand the galaxy, because JJ got rid of our world-building character. We can't even say that this is a great action that Finn or Janna take at the end. Like, does it really matter that they blow this up? Well, if they led a stormtrooper rebellion, no, I won't shut up about this, that would have been a great moment of atonement and justify the fact that they started as stormtroopers.
All of us here were stormtroopers.
I have an idea for that.
So finally, there's one more redemption arc we need to talk about, that of Ben Solo.
He's my best friend, he's my pal, he's my homeboy, my rotten soldier, he's my sweet cheese. My good time boy.
But since his arc and people's reaction to it is essentially the reason for this video, we're gonna dive into it in the next section. My point of this section, though, is that Star Wars was designed to incorporate redemption arcs. And unlike other franchises where maybe one character changes sides, the arc is baked into this franchise. A person choosing to do good is rewarded and always accepted by the rebellion or resistance.
He's got to follow his own path. No one can choose it for him.
Hey, I knew that was more to you than money.
That's an incredibly powerful statement. Oh, and you don't have to just take my word for it. Now you may be thinking, Anne, those were some good points and you had some good examples of redemption arcs, but why did you leave out the most important and well-known arc in the last section? It's the one everyone thinks of first, after all. And you're right, let's get into it now. The template for our modern redemption arc is, of course, The Christmas Carol, written in 1843 by Charles Dickens. You may be a Grinch family, but we were definitely a Christmas Carol family and watched one adaptation or another every year. What's particularly fun, I think, is that the first edition came out on December 19th, 1843, and The Rise of Skywalker came out on December 19th, 2019, which also happens to be my birthday. So allow me to go through a new adaptation of the story with you. May it haunt your house pleasantly.
I know the story of A Christmas Carol like the back of my hand. Prove it. All right? The Marleys were dead to begin with.
Your son, he's gone.
Dead as a doornail.
He was weak and foolish, like his father. So I destroyed him.
There he is, Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge.
When a cold wind blows, it chills you to the bone.
There goes Mr. Humbug, there goes Mr. Grim. If they gave a prize for being mean, the winner would be him. There goes Mr. Heartless, there goes Mr. Cruel. He never gives, he only takes, he lets his hunger rule.
He was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, clutching, covetous old sinner.
Bob Cratchit?
Yes, Mr. Scrooge?
Who is this?
Sir, we were unable to acquire the droid on Jakku.
Please, Mr. Scrooge, I know you're very angry about this, and I didn't mean to fall behind in the payment.
It escaped capture aboard a stolen Carillion YT model freighter.
Oh, please don't shout at me, sir.
FN 2187 may have helped in the escape.
Screaming, you're right, but it won't do no good, because I'm the stone you can't squeeze blood from, and that's the truth. Thank you for not shouting at me.
Anything else?
The two were accompanied by a girl.
What girl?
Christmas is a loving, honest, and charitable time. And though it's never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that Christmas has done me good and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
Yeah. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips would be cooked with his own turkey and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
I know where you come from. Before you called yourself Kylo Ren, but you cannot deny the truth. That is your family. You're so right.
So I shall make my donation and leave you to make yours.
Are
What do you want?
The penny for the song, Governor? Ow!
Might want to rethink your technique.
How much time off is customary, Mr. Cratchit?
The whole day.
It's a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every December the 25th.
How capable are your soldiers, General? They're obviously skilled at committing high treason. I want that map. For your sake, I suggest you get it.
Jacob Marley?
The one from the village. FN 2187.
The new Jedi will rise.
Don't criticize me. You always criticize me.
We were always heckling you.
You wonder why I keep a rabbit cur in such a place of power.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
Haunted? I've already had enough of that.
In the hands of your father, Han Solo.
He means nothing to me.
Without these visits, you cannot hope to avoid the path we tread. Expect the first ghost tonight.
By the grace of your training, I will not be seduced.
We shall see.
Stave 1 is to introduce us to the character and what a terrible person he is. We have both Scrooge and Kylo Ren cutting down people from their past who are trying to bring them back to their families, as well as general cruelty to those at their mercy and to their own co-workers. Kylo Ren is especially bothered by what he senses from Finn, someone who does choose to go back to the light side, essentially. This is much like Scrooge seeing Marley's face in the doorknob, something deeply disturbing to the way of life each man has embraced. And then we have a ghost appear to warn the man about the upcoming trials that await him. Both try to dismiss this idea, but you can tell the ghosts can see through them.
Leave comedy to the bears, Ebenezer.
One thing I want to point out about this section, though, is that Scrooge is described thusly:
a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, clutching, covetous old sinner.
And while Kylo Ren is no picnic, we are not introduced to him as so incredibly cold and cruel. Keep that in mind and let's continue the story.
I'm the ghost of Christmas past. Your salvation then. Take heed. Come.
Show me. Grandfather.
It's my old school.
He was training a new generation of Jedi. One boy, an apprentice, turned against him and destroyed it all.
Come on, he never goes home for Christmas. Who cares about stupid old Christmas?
That's why I wanted him to train with Luke. I just never should have sent him away. That's when I lost him.
What an employer he was. As hard and as ruthless as a rose petal.
You're his father.
It escaped capture aboard a stolen Carillion YT model freighter.
Father. Han Solo.
And Han Solo.
Han Solo. Han Solo. Find them.
Ben! And it's a tradition for us to take a little nap.
It's the Marley brothers. My old partners as they were as lads.
No, it was Snoke. He seduced our son to the dark side.
Ebenezer, this is Belle, a friend of the Fozziwig family.
I'm pleased to meet you.
So you said last year?
Business continues to be poor.
You. The scavenger.
You may regret the choice you make someday.
You're a monster.
And yes, some dreams come true. And yes, some dreams fall through. Time has come to say goodbye.
Take me back! Hunt me no longer!
I'm being torn apart. I want to be free of this pain.
The point of The Ghost of Christmas Past is to humanize our protagonist, something he fights against strongly because being reminded of his past forces him to confront what brought him to where he is now. Han Solo is the first ghost to visit Kylo Ren.
Solo.
Han Solo.
Han Solo. Han Solo.
Though we get a lot of information without them being on screen together until the culmination. And while it is not in any of the movies, other materials suggest that little Ben's time at the Jedi Academy was probably similar to young Ebenezer's time at school, up to and including then going to their new mentors. I suppose including more of this would have been helpful for general audiences, but we do learn about him as a person, especially the fact that we finally see his face, something that occurs only after we've heard his parents talking about him and what happened, and we see him through Rey's eyes, the protagonist of this movie. So first we have the lens of his parents wanting him back, especially Leia, and then the lens of our protagonist seeing his humanity. So that's a significant way to frame him in terms of what we can expect for his future. But more with the past. Both men are shaken by the lady's unkind assessment of them. And in a story where the point is to shake them out of their current situation, that's pretty important. I would also like to point out how this part of the past has two meanings. Scrooge sees his former employer, his mentor, whom he has chosen not to emulate, despite how much he enjoys going back to that time in his life. Kylo Ren looks to Darth Vader's mask, which of course makes us think he is emulating the Sith Lord, which he is, to be clear. But it can also serve as a hint because of whom Anakin ended up being. A troubled young man, taken advantage of by a darker power, but ultimately he turned back to the light, as we can expect for Ben. Another similarity is that though Scrooge initially enjoyed revisiting some memories, he is in agony by the end, like someone else we know.
I'm being torn apart.
There are a couple things just in the book that apply here. First, Scrooge sees Belle's happy family with a different husband, and honestly, I think it's similar to this, where Rey takes up the legacy that Ben Solo put aside.
That lightsaber. It belongs to me.
Secondly, Book Scrooge is so upset by these reminiscences that he attacks the spirits, much like Kylo Ren does here. Now that we have established what led our man to becoming this version of himself, that even he hates, we continue to Christmas Present.
Scrooge was left alone and exhausted in his bedchamber. Scrooge knew that the second of the ghosts was due to appear.
Ho, 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 ho! Come in and know me better, man! And know me better, man! Did I already say that? You did.
And you called me a monster.
You are a monster.
Have you ever noticed that everything seems wonderful at Christmas?
In all honesty, Spirit, no.
I would give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I bet he would choke on it. Choke.
See my surroundings?
You're gonna pay for what you did.
I can't see yours.
No, he is odious, stingy, wicked, and unfeeling.
Murderous snake. You're too late. You lost.
And badly dressed.
Do you have something, a cowl or something you can put on?
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I'd never felt so alone.
You're not alone.
I pay Bub such a small amount.
And kills his true enemy.
I wish to see friends, kin. Show me family.
Is it an unwanted creature?
Often. What?
It's Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yes.
That's a killer.
I know my son's gone.
No one's ever really gone. Strike me down in anger and I'll always be with you. Just like your father.
Then, if he's going to die, he'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Oh, Spirit.
As the Cratchit family vanished into the darkness, Scrooge kept his eyes upon Tiny Tim until the last.
Go forth and know him better, man.
The ghost of Christmas Present is here to remind Scrooge that he doesn't have to be stuck in this life. He can still make different choices for even the immediate future. First, we see our protagonist is still very upset about reliving his past. Then the ghost appears and leads him through what he's going to be missing if he continues on this path. Scrooge is prepared to learn while Kylo Ren is not really there just yet, but he does end up being so affected by his main ghost of Christmas Present, Rey, that he makes a significant change for her by the end, even if he does walk it back after she leaves. Kylo Ren gets a few ghosts. He connects with his mother through the Force, showing how he could be doing all of this to help her instead of hurt her. Not as dramatic, perhaps, but not dissimilar to Scrooge learning he could be helping people on Christmas instead of hiding himself away. Scrooge then goes to the Cratchits, hears himself called out and insulted, but ultimately being moved to pity and compassion, much as Kylo Ren experiences when this girl keeps showing up while he's trying to go about his day.
Just you.
In the book, it's described as Scrooge being surprised that he's in his own rooms because they have changed significantly with the presence of the ghost. And given this comparison, whenever Rey is in Ben's space, I think she is certainly his Christmas present. In two ways. One is that she is the one tasked with trying to be the Jedi for the Resistance, a role he would have if he had not turned, and also because of their intimate connection in the present.
We'll turn.
Scrooge, seeing the happy family of the Cratchits, offers something he is missing, but could have if he were to behave differently, and Rey is the same for Ben. The final ghost for Kylo Ren is, of course, Luke reappearing. This is much like seeing Scrooge's own nephew and family, suggesting that reconciliation is possible, but will not be easy. Unlike the Cratchits and Rey, who are willing to accept them as soon as they change their ways, family is, of course, more complicated. And both of these reunions with family bring into sharp relief how the men have gotten everything they claimed to want. Scrooge with his cheap, miserly life devoid of expensive attachments, and Kylo Ren with becoming supreme leader. But it's really hollow in the end because it's not what they actually want. So the ghosts leave, with the man having to decide what he's going to do about the present that has been offered to him.
Lead on, Spirit.
And become what your grandfather Vader could not.
I thought he'd never go.
I know some of those gentlemen, Spirit. Of what poor wretch do they speak?
I don't care if you win. I need Kylo Ren to lose.
I understand, Spirit. The case of this unhappy man might be my own.
You're haunted. You can't stop saying what you did to your father.
Oh, Mother, you're crying again.
Rey.
You're mine.
Not Tiny Tim.
I know what happened to them.
Why would you show me this if I was past all hope?
I did want to take your hand. Ben's hand.
Are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they the shadows of things that may be only?
You're just a memory.
A life can be made right.
I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it.
Oh, Spirit, please speak to me.
Dad.
I know.
Now we have the ghost of Christmas future, a dark and frightening figure. That's probably Palpatine here, especially as the dark specter of Ben's future.
Every voice you have ever heard inside your head.
And what he might become. The next couple scenes are admittedly not perfectly the same. Scrooge is by this time rather contrite and afraid of these things happening to him, while Kylo Ren is pretty comfortable being supreme leader. He even goes back to hiding his humanity. Until here. With Rey, of course. She continues to be one of his ghosts, this time serving as the future, specifically because of how he wants her to be part of his future. Like Scrooge finding out about Tiny Tim, Kylo Ren is most affected by the revelation about Rey that he knows will most upset her.
They sold you to protect you.
Stop talking!
Which culminates in being shown their own deaths, or experiencing it, in Ben's case. Scrooge begs for an alternative from the ghost, while Rey grants him mercy herself. And while Scrooge swears to the ghost that he can and will change, Ben Solo sees his father again to make the same declaration.
Oh, Spirit, please speak to me.
Scrooge happiest of all was that his life lay before him, and it could be changed.
Oh! No, I'll give you 5 shillings. Put me down for...
Skywalker!
He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city ever had. As Tiny Tim observed, God bless us.
God bless us, everyone.
For the final section of this story, the protagonist has confronted past, present, and future, and now makes an important decision about what they're going to do. Then they go around making amends for what they've done, and reparations if they can. For Scrooge, this means helping the Cratchits and reconciling with his family, as well as spreading his wealth to help those in need across the city. For Ben, that means helping Rey, and then... dying. Uh-oh, that ending is not really at all like Scrooge's, is it? So we'd better talk about that change to the story and what it means. Okay, so to wrap this up, I want to address some criticisms of Ben Solo and his redemption arc. Pragmatically speaking, doing anything else would at best be boring. Kylo Ren and Rey already fought here, and she won. There's no way of raising the stakes by having them fight again. That's why this fight is confusing, boring. The choreography is cool, but there isn't any character motivation behind either of these fights, so it's pretty meaningless.
I'll come tell you.
This fight was awesome because of how it was unexpected. They went from opposite sides to teaming up. But only briefly, so we understandably expected to have much more of them fighting together in episode 9, instead of this tiny moment before he gets tossed in a pit. I'm just saying, it was very silly of anyone to expect her to fight him and win again as where the story would go. Even the actual movie, despite being very bad, did better than that. For the second thing I want to address, let's go back to A Christmas Carol. There are two main female characters, Belle and Mrs. Cratchit. Neither are in the story for long, but they do have perhaps the strongest effect of any individual, other than probably Tiny Tim. When we meet Mrs. Cratchit, Scrooge is learning what a nice time Christmas can be when one is with family and seeing how positive and pleasant an environment her home is.
Such a meager feast.
But very much appreciated.
And then she calls him out personally.
The founder of the feast, indeed.
That breaks the illusion he had been enjoying and puts a face on the fact that Scrooge's miserly behavior is affecting more than just him.
I paid Bub such a small amount.
We get to know the Cratchits because of how Scrooge's decisions directly affect them, and Mrs. Cratchit exists to put a finer point on how she's unable to properly care for her family because of Scrooge himself.
Even though he is odious, stingy, wicked, and unfeeling.
Were Bob Cratchit a bachelor, this point would not be so obvious, and perhaps not exist at all. We already know about how miserly Scrooge is, and he knows, and everyone in town sings about it. But Mrs. Cratchit and her brood are how this is illustrated as a significant social ill that needs to be addressed. So she is very important to the story of his redemption, especially how she behaves when he comes to visit.
And I have had my fill of you, Mr. Scrooge.
Emily.
Pavement around to...
Pardon? Come inside. Yes.
Keep that in mind.
Tiny Tim, Scrooge became a second father.
The other main female character is Belle, Ebenezer's lady friend when he's a young man. We do not spend a lot of time with her, but she has a significant effect on the plot. Like Mrs. Cratchit, she calls Ebenezer out on his behavior.
Another year before our wedding, Ebenezer.
His obsession, his purpose of acquiring wealth has come between them.
You're a partner in your own firm now.
And she has realized he's never going to actually be in the present with her. He's always looking to the future, detached from what is happening around him, and how the years are passing because he's determined to reach some ever-changing goal.
Barely clearing expenses.
You said the partnership was the goal.
This is for you.
One thing I really like about this is that, unlike modern stories where a man is spurned and ends up alone, there's no blame placed on Belle for leaving. He didn't turn into a recluse because she left him. He was already driving everyone away and chose to ignore her attempt to make him understand what he was doing.
I love you, Belle.
You did once.
Overall, A Christmas Carol is about one man's redemption, but the fact is not lost on me that it is the women, especially, who call him out for his failures, while the men are more likely to obey him, or at least maintain politeness. All except his nephew, of course.
Why ever did you get married?
Why? Because I fell in love.
To rephrase that, Scrooge allows what he believes is his purpose to get in the way of developing any meaningful relationships. And the men are more willing to let that slide, because sacrificing everything for a purpose is a tenet of masculinity.
Let's generalize about men. There are no exceptions. All 3 billion men are like this. All 3.6 billion men.
I want to point out this wonderful video by Like Stories of Old, especially for any men watching, that talks about the societal belief in masculine purpose and how damaging it can be to both men and society.
The thing that bothers me has to do with the way this heroic masculine purpose is framed. The way it is conceptualized, even if the intent is for men to project their own meaning onto it. What it seems to suggest is that there is an essence to manhood that is completely detached from everything else, that stands apart from all external elements, and subsequently seems to insist that a man's main focus should be on reconciling this nebulous essence with every other facet of his life, like some superhero alter ego. Just like the old gunslingers going off into the sunset once the fight is over, he too is a protector of a world he himself cannot inhabit. Heroic men die, but they don't do laundry. While heroic masculine purpose means taking on a great burden, it also means being freed from many others. I've seen men embrace the detachment of heroic masculine purpose not because they have completely devoted themselves to serving their society, but because they are harboring a disdain for it, and just want to escape from it.
Earlier I talked about Theoden in Lord of the Rings and his redemption arc, which sadly leads to his death. But I think it's important to note that this is really in service of someone else's redemption arc, Eowyn's. Yeah, she doesn't actively work for the bad guys, but she is bitter and despairing. And giving in to despair is the worst thing you can do in this story.
Go now and die in what way seems best
to you.
She abandons her duties to ride out in pursuit of her own death. Watch this video for more on that. But she learns something extremely important in the process, that dying for the cause is not actually the greatest honor. Tolkien was very familiar with epic tales, and he had Éowyn and the hobbits learn that celebrating the victorious dead may have its place, but there are more important things to do than join them.
Boromir died to save us, my kinsman and me. I offer you my service, such as it is.
Éowyn, Merry, even Frodo and Sam spend a while in the Houses of Healing, and then when they come out, they're ready to serve their societies. The war may be over, but that doesn't mean the work is done. The great purpose has been accomplished, but new gardens must be planted and tended for anything to flourish. Éowyn learns this directly, and this is in essence the point of the book.
You have so much to enjoy, and to be, and to do.
Theoden's heroic death is there not because redemption arcs should end in death, but because they shouldn't. It's just not his that we're addressing here. Éowyn needs to understand that, as much renown as Theoden gained, she would rather have her king and her uncle back.
I know your face. Éowyn. I know your face. Éowyn.
That he was needed not to die in battle, but to lead their people, and his absence will be felt strongly no matter what songs may come of it. The video I linked talks about
Part 5. I let Aragorn down, and maybe you did too. I also grew detached from the little things, the real things, in my immediate environment, which in turn led to me failing to act when it actually mattered. That my life's purpose cannot be reduced to a singular effort. Or better yet, that a singular effort, even if it feels like my life's purpose, doesn't alleviate me from all the other responsibilities that arise from being a partner, a friend, a family member, and even from being part of a larger community, a citizen of a country, a human being on our planet.
And that resonated with me because, while us ladies generally don't feel the need to drop everything for a purpose, we certainly discuss the burdens we have as a result of men dropping everything that makes society function. Like, yeah, he can talk about civil rights, but does he do the dishes?
It's not over yet.
It is for me, sister.
It reminds me of this bit in Yours, Mine, and Ours, where the father explains what love really is.
It isn't going to bed with the man that proves you're in love with him. It's getting up in the morning and facing the drab, miserable, wonderful, everyday world with him that counts.
And it works both ways. Becoming part of your community through admittedly boring tasks is what actually benefits society, not waiting for some glorious purpose to wow everyone.
And I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Okay, so then back to Star Wars. As I said, the redemptions in the original trilogy are all completed when they serve the rebellion successfully after atoning for their actions. Anakin dies in his redemption, but I think it's a lot like Theoden's.
I am going to save you.
You already did.
I'll not leave you here. I've got to save you.
You already have.
The point is that Luke is saved from going dark out of love for his father, and his father saved him from the dark side more directly out of love for him. Luke isn't really having a redemption arc, but he was tempted by the dark side and needed both of these events to solidify his choice. And how does Ben Solo's death help the Resistance? Or Rey? It doesn't. Yeah, he brought Rey back from the dead, but what kind of story is this? That the life force of their bond is enough to bring back this old crone, but not enough to keep them both alive? Giving the heroine healing powers should, mean something? Heal the person she cares most about? Probably.
It's mine.
But nonsense aside, any ending where he's not alive sucks for Rey. Like Belle in A Christmas Carol, she was pretty clear about the circumstances under which she would accept him.
Don't do this, Ben. Please don't go this way.
And he finally meets them, only to die.
I did want to take your hand. Ben's hand.
Ebenezer took decades after Belle called him out to do anything. Ben Solo took like a year at most. Belle married someone else. Rey is just completely alone. I talked more about this in her video, but his death really ruins any chance of happiness for her. What, after being a dyad and basically sharing a soul, she's just gonna date someone else now? That's insane in general, and definitely for what is supposed to be a fairy tale.
You're not alone.
Neither are you.
But his death affects another female character even more.
I want him back.
Leia lost her family years ago. This is set up as like her primary trait in The Force Awakens. And she knows why it was lost, and her mission is to fix it.
I just never should have sent him away. That's when I lost him.
Han Solo dies to prove that Ben could go home.
It's too late.
No, it's not. Leave here with me. Come home.
As does Luke after atoning for his actions that drove Ben away.
I failed you, Ben. I'm sorry.
That's why the marketing has Luke like this. He's the villain in Ben's story and has his own redemption arc to follow, which, like Theoden's and Anakin's, is supposed to lead the next generation to happiness.
We are what they grow beyond.
And one would expect that Leia's gonna end up like Mrs. Cratchit, except even more welcoming when he comes home.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wonder if he means old Ben Kenobi. Ben?
Ben! Hope lives in the galaxy.
But then she distracts him during a fight, causes his death, and then dies herself to wait for him, apparently, and then they both disappear into the Force together. When I saw this with my mom, she was quite annoyed. That is not how a mother would behave. She would die to keep her son alive, not wait to die with him.
What man did this?
My next video will get more into this, but my point is that Ben's death messes up what both our leading ladies wanted, and does nothing to teach anyone anything, or even help the Resistance at all. Like, no one even knows who Ben Solo is, or why the Tridge heroes all died. The battle is over before he dies. Now he's just traded his life for Rey's in a way that makes me feel icky. Does the Force just trade out folks like that? Do the Skywalkers?
Leia told me that she had sensed the death of her son at the end of her Jedi path by someone who would finish her journey.
Just trading children like baseball cards? Oh, this one's in better condition. Let's keep it.
Because you're a Palpatine. Leia knew it too.
He's like the Gollum in this situation, I guess.
My heart tells me that Gollum has some part to play yet, for good or ill.
Finally, yes, I hear people saying, but he did bad stuff. Obviously, he had to die like Vader did. Sure, Scrooge can be redeemed, but like Kylo Ren killed a lot of people. Okay, first, let's see who he killed.
So right.
In return, does
Prepare to crush any worlds that defy us.
Seems like it's mostly bad guys. Second, look at all the people other redeemed folks have killed. I don't have exact numbers, but that's definitely orders of magnitude more than Ben. Third, the only bad guys who have similar kill counts to blowing up a Death Star are Generals Tarkin, Hux, and Pride. We are clearly shown that Kylo Ren and Darth Vader are not responsible for that, and might even be against it.
Prepare the weapon.
Supreme Leader, I can get the map from the girl.
Fourth and most relevant, as I said in the first part, our heroes kill people all the time. It's genre blindness to think that a story about warring factions is gonna draw a hard line between good guys and bad guys through the number of kills a person racks up. More importantly, I'm gonna assume you don't know much about Charles Dickens. He was born during the Industrial Revolution, and his father was put into a debtor's prison when he was 12. If you don't know what that is, it's where if you don't have any money, they put you in jail for a while so you can't earn any money. Charles had to leave school so he could work at a factory to support his family until he was 15 when the debts were paid. Charles worked in a soul-crushing and perhaps appendage-crushing environment for 3 years as a child because his father's meager salary put the family deeper and deeper into debt.
Old Scrooge, he loves his money cause he thinks it gives him power. He charges folks a fortune for his dark and drafty houses. Us poor folk live in misery.
No crust of bread for those in need.
No cheeses for us Mises.
Are there no prisons, no poorhouses?
Oh, plenty of those, sir.
Oh, excellent. I know how to treat the poor. My taxes go to pay for the prisons and the poorhouses. The homeless must go there. If they'd rather die, then they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Took advantage of the poor, just ignored the needy. And if you could not pay the rent, we simply threw you out. There was something about mankind we loved. I think it was their money.
My point is that Charles Dickens created essentially the most evil man he could think of, a moneylender whose actions and philosophy were actively hurting everyone around him, and then wrote how such a man might be redeemed by being haunted by 4 ghosts, obviously.
Haunted? I've already had enough of that.
Followed by the most important part of the process, living to change his ways and spread his wealth around, serving his society in the way he always should have been instead of expecting it to serve him.
With a glass raised to toast your health.
And a promise to share the wealth.
Killing off Scrooge wouldn't help anyone.
Well, I don't know or care why he's gone. I'd just like to know what he's done for his money.
Said that he didn't die years ago, the old skinflint.
Changing him does.
And Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. Tiny Tim, who did not die, to Tiny Tim, Scrooge became a second father.
And to bring this back to the reason for the season, the idea of a divine purpose for men, which they must sacrifice their lives for, is certainly related to this whole thing. There's plenty of iconography in movies reflecting that bit of the story, but it forgets what is actually why this became a religion. Jesus comes back, like that's an important step. He lives and comes back to tell everyone that he died so they don't have to. Ignoring this part of the process is just self-aggrandizing and possibly sacrilegious. So if your objection is that Kylo Ren is a space fascist, and we have a real problem with young men being recruited by various radical groups that embrace fascism, I think that could have been the point.
I feel it again. The pull to the light.
How powerful a message would it have been for Kylo Ren to realize that the lies of old men who only want power are really just lies to take advantage of his isolation and resentment?
Snoke is using you for your power. When he gets what he wants, he'll crush you.
You have too much of your father's heart in you. Palpatine wants you dead.
Serving another master.
That his family does want him back.
If you see our son, bring him home.
That he could have served his community and had a significant effect on it.
Return from the dark side, that could shift the tide. This could be how we win.
But what you stood for, what you fought for, that's not gone.
Like, it's established that he aligned himself with the space fascists because he was cut off from society.
Is it true? Did you try to murder him? Did you do it? Did you create Kylo Ren?
And I was left with shame. And with consequence.
So insisting he remain so just proves Snoke or Palpatine or whoever right.
I stoked Ren's conflicted soul. I knew he was not strong enough to hide it from you.
Saying he needs to go to jail for his crimes or die for them and can't be allowed back is literally the reason he's acting that way.
I'm being torn apart. I want to be free of this pain. You can't go back to it now. Like I can't.
Completely unlike Scrooge, who we see actively chose his circumstances.
But it can't be helped, Belle.
Honestly, I think redeeming him more than halfway through the movie was bad writing. He should have been redeemed as soon as he was told this.
I have been every voice you have ever heard inside your head.
And then gone to join the resistance for the rest of the movie. He should have reunited with his mother, our heroine from the previous trilogy, whose greatest desire was to see her son again. And he should have teamed up with Rey for them to figure out a way to have the Force work in the future.
This didn't go on forever. I knew it was leading somewhere. That at the end it would show me what I came to see.
Which, of course, also means there should have been the biggest redemption arc of them all, having the stormtroopers rebel.
Rebel scum.
Led by Finn and Janna, and go against their officers so the First Order would be disbanded instead of just decimated. There is no reason why whoever survived this won't team up in the future, perhaps under a charismatic leader to form another First Order.
The end of a regime that acquiesces to disorder.
A redemption arc for the Stormtroopers, for Kylo Ren, hell, even for Hux, would have led to an actual change in the galaxy. As it stands, the cycle is ready to repeat.
The only fight against the dark side.
The next powerful Force user can be groomed by Palpatine or whoever else is going to return and lead everything back to darkness in like a decade or so. Great. I love having a hopeless story where our heroes are stuck in a time loop, doomed to repeat the same mistake over and over again.
They blow you up today, you blow them up tomorrow.
At least that means Disney can keep releasing essentially the same films forever.
It's just business.
The various endings of Lord of the Rings have the heroes join with everyone else and serve their communities, like Luke does, like Scrooge does, and like Ben Solo doesn't. Any version of this story, where the child of Han Solo and Leia Organa, nephew to Luke Skywalker, turns to the dark side and simply must be murdered, is a bad story.
What then? If he's going to die, he'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Especially if our heroes all sacrifice themselves for him. He needed to come home, and more importantly, to stay alive. To stay alive and actually atone, help our new hero save the day, and guide the future generations of Force users. Otherwise, why give them a child at all, if we don't care about the next generation?
Oh, Spirit, must there be a Christmas that brings this awful scene?
To very briefly recommend Willow once again, it has not one but two dark princes who are both saved by people who love them.
We both believe that love
is the most powerful thing in the universe.
What a nice story, where the kiss saves him from the curse instead of a kiss of death that kills him.
Never doubted you for a second.
Anyway, all of this is to say that I find it rather shocking to contemplate how a story written in 1843, in the midst of economic and political upheaval, had a vastly happier ending than this fairy tale in 2019. They had the chance to give us some hope for the future, but a series that started out with A New Hope ends with putting us back where we started. Before any heroes fixed anything at all, and making us question what the point of any of this even was. No wonder they can't figure out what to do after it.
This will begin to make things right.
So, what even are redemption arcs? Like most of fiction, they are wish fulfillment. We wish the people who are choosing to behave badly could be changed and embrace coming back to us.
I want him back.
And unlike other examples I intentionally left out, it is baked into the fabric of Star Wars. And this is an extremely powerful message that is directed at a lot of political movements. They are doomed to fail if they don't allow anyone to join who wants to. Underdogs don't have the luxury of infighting.
It was incredibly brave what you did, renouncing the First Order, saving this man's life.
And if you don't think Ben Solo got enough time on his redemption arc, you are incorrect.
The spirits did it all in one night.
Frankly, he should have done it sooner and been redeemed for most of the Rise of Skywalker. That would actually have been a radical statement. Having him redeemed just to die is the same as every other poorly written allegory we have. It's deeply disappointing.
He died? And this is supposed to be a kid's movie.
The real-world implications are depressing and bleak. A character who suffered their whole life being killed off is an actively evil approach to fiction, if you ask me. Plenty of people, especially children, related strongly to his feelings of betrayal and frustration with his powerlessness. Killing him off as soon as he does something about it is a horrible choice to make for anyone watching, both for those relating to him and for those who don't. If you despise him, you need to be confronted with his humanity. Realize that anyone, even you, could be put in this situation.
It was Snoke. He seduced our son to the dark side.
I will not be seduced.
And see how he can be forgiven.
No one's ever really gone.
As can you. And that is the point of redemption arcs.
But what she stood for, what she fought for, that's not gone.
Thank you for listening to me talk about an often misunderstood trope in Star Wars. Next time, we are finishing this series with a final episode on our space princess and how the sequel trilogy treated her.
Too many losses. I can't take anymore.
Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, join my Patreon, buy me a coffee, all the things so you don't miss it. See you then.